and I'm your instructor for GEO and RST 207, Biblical Geography. It occurs to me that as a student, I would want to know what is the reason for having a course in biblical geography. In other words, why study biblical geography? So this first talk that I'd like to present to you provides that information, I hope. And so I've got a slideshow that I want to share with you. So most of us have some familiarity with the Bible. I'm assuming you have some familiarity with it. And so we read stories like David and Goliath, and we think, wow, that's neat. Or some other thought comes into our head. But then where does geography fit into this whole process? So I got a couple of photos. First off, I've got a map of elevation. So you've got, you probably can't see the legend, but the light colors toward the coast indicate close to sea level, and darker shades of brown indicate higher elevations. And then you've got kind of a bluish color that represents below sea level. So this part of the world has the lowest elevations on planet Earth, including significant parts that are below sea level. So being able to take geographic phenomenon and understanding the setting for these stories helps enhance the understanding. In fact, in some cases, it provides understanding that could otherwise not be known. Here's another map here. And this, again, you probably can't see the legend, but this is a focus on the economy in ancient times and various regions of wheat production or cattle herding or more dominantly maybe fishing along the coast or in the Sea of Galilee, etc. So it occurs to me that the first thing we need to do is talk about what is geography and then move on to why it is important in studying the Bible. Most people have classes in history. You probably had several as you went through public school. You probably had at least one or more biology classes. Probably had, again, multiple English classes. So maybe you kind of have a good feel for those subjects, but most people have zero geography, maybe never. My kids in public school have a little unit or two in about fourth grade and a little unit or two maybe in about seventh grade. And then high school, there's no requirement to have geography. So that little taste probably doesn't really convey an understanding of what geography is. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Popularly in the world, geography is thought of primarily, in my opinion, as some combination of landforms, highest elevation, lowest elevation, what rivers there are, what mountains there are, and some combination of that maybe in climate. And so I've got an entry from Wikipedia here on the screen. And because Wikipedia is crowdsourced, that is, you can write an entry and you can edit entries. I think that's a decent gauge of what most people think of when they think of geography. And so here on the right-hand side of the screen, I have the section called Geography from Wikipedia for the country of Uruguay. And you can't see the small print, I'm sure, but in a summary sense, the article talks about land area, how big the country is, how many square miles, the highest point, what rivers there are, the name of the capital city, some surrounding information about other countries in South America, national parks, ecological regions, and then it spends a whole section on climate. So that seems to be a popular notion of what people mean by geography. You also see at the bottom left that the little cartoon strip asks about how many countries there are in the world. And again, I think people think when they think back to their geography public school experience, they probably had to memorize the 50 states. They may have had to memorize the counties of the state where they lived. Some similar things like that. Also, typically maps get used in a history class. So you may have encountered some maps in history classes. So I think that's maybe a good idea of what people think of when they think of geography. Now on this slide, this is a college level textbook and the table of contents from something called Introduction to Geography. I just Googled this and found a recent copy, and I copied the table of contents. So you can see that chapter 3 and 4, physical geography, landforms, and physical geography, weather and climate, seems to be everything that is included in the geography entry for the country of Uruguay on Wikipedia. But the rest of it, chapters 5 through 13, don't seem to be talked about at all in that entry in Wikipedia. And I think, again, that probably reflects the popular understanding of what geography is. But this textbook obviously reflects scholarly or an academic understanding of what geography is. And so geographers are not just studying maps. That might be chapter 2 on this table of contents. And they're not just interested in climates and landforms. Although, again, there are some geographers whose sole interest maybe is that. We have a professor here in our department who is an expert in weather and climate, particularly hurricanes. But you see these other topics that are covered: population, cultures, that would be religions, language, ethnicities, and so forth, human interaction among each other. So things like economic systems, political geography, not just where are the countries. Of course, that would be something that would be included here. But things like, okay, how does a boundary affect interaction from one country to another? In other words, if you remove the boundary, how would people function differently? So those are some topics that may be covered in political geography. Economics, a couple of chapters there in this book. And so you get the point that there's more to geography than just what Wikipedia considers geography. So what do these chapter titles have to do with each other? Well, geography can be called the spatial science, or the science of where. So geographers are interested in why things are where they are and what is in certain locations. In other words, maps are a geographer's main tool to convey this piece of it, that is where things are. And then the second aspect of geography is, why are they in those places? How did things get to those places? So if you think about a phenomenon that you might see, let's say high population density in a place like India. Why do they have high population there? And why is it not a high population in the western part of the United States? Well, those would be factors that geographers would be interested in exploring. So in other words, where things are, their spatial distribution, and how do they get that way? An explanation of spatial distributions. That's kind of the idea behind everything in geography. And if I go back to the table of contents, you could see in this list that, for example, chapter 6 about cultures, let's say we're talking about a religion like Judaism, and you say, okay, well, why is it associated with the Middle East as the origin point? Well, okay, it's originated there and it's spread around that region. But then, if modern conditions, there are maybe 6 million Jews that live in modern Israel. There are that many or more that live in other places. So then the question would be, how did they spread from that origin point to other places? Or if you think about economic geography, West Virginia is known for coal mining. And why is West Virginia known for coal mining and Florida is not? Well, it's because Florida has no coal. So natural resource presence allows that economic activity to develop. Now, it would do West Virginia little good if we kept all the coal to ourselves. So we do some of that. We use coal to create electricity in the state. But other states have a need for electricity as well. So we export the coal. So coal is extracted in West Virginia. It is put on some sort of transportation like a train or a truck. It is moved to another location where it's converted into maybe electricity or used to power a plant that creates steel. So that movement of products, in fact, economics, you could almost, have a broad statement and say that economics is geography, in the sense that other than you raising a vegetable garden in your backyard, everything else gets traded among people and groups, and that trade has to occur across space, Earth space, of course, and that is the realm of geography. So we looked at Wikipedia, and it seems to only concern maybe the first couple of chapters about physical geography, but we would like to investigate what geography has to do with the Bible in particular, and that'll be the subject of the next slideshow.